I thought we'd have a quick update on this BSA A65 so-called Spitfire engine, and as can be seen I've got the new pistons, a pair of pistons fitted, the circlips are in, and I've even got the piston rings fitted to one piston. Why only one, Paul? Well, we'll come to that in a minute, but the rings on that piston have all been checked in the cylinder bore, and actually all of them had to be filed just a little to make the gaps large enough to meet the lowest figure, which was 0.010 of an inch gap. It wasn't a great deal, but I didn't want them to be too tight in the bores and maybe cause damage, so you're allowed 10 to 13 thousandths of an inch for new rings, and obviously the cylinder bores aren't brand new, but they're very good, so I wanted to make sure that I had at least 10 thou when I got that. But while doing so, unfortunately, and this is the reason why we've got no rings on this piston, when I started to pinch the ends of the new oil ring together to get it into the bore in the first place to check the gap, I started to squeeze it, and before I even got the ends together, snap, the ring just, well, it broke. It just virtually crumbled. Actually, there was no effort at all on my part, and in fact it probably put a lot more strain on a piston ring trying to open it up to get it over the piston than in closing one down to try and make the ends meet. So we're on stop because obviously I've gapped these two compression rings, but they have to go on after the oil scraper ring, which is the one that broke. So I got in touch with my supplier and explained what had happened and asked if you know, I might get a replacement. Well, obviously I suppose it could sound like I've been clumsy and I'm blagging it to try and get another ring, but I honestly wasn't. I was very surprised when I held the ring and squeezed it to get it in the bore that it did snap, actually, because I probably had to squeeze a fair bit harder on that one to get the ends to actually just about meet to get into the bore, but I never even got that far with this one. But anyway, I ordered a few more bits and pieces because I've got to change the valves and guides in the cylinder head, as we know. I think I've covered that. So I mentioned this broken ring and asked if they could possibly find me a replacement. I explained what happened, and the valves and guides came back, but there was no piston ring, so I inquired about that, and apparently they were reluctant to break into another set to rob an oil ring for me, which I suppose is sort of understandable because they've only got my word to go by. But apparently they're going to have a word with their supplier and see if they can get a ring, and I hope they can. I've got one oil ring off one of the old pistons, and the gap is actually quite respectable on it, but bigger than I'd like, and not as small as it would be on a new ring. So I really would like a replacement for this one that just sort of pretty much seemed to snap with little more than looking at it. Made in England too, apparently. Anyway, we'll see. That's where we are at the moment. I'm waiting to see if I get a piston ring, an oil ring, and I've spoken to the owner, and he would like the barrels and the heads blasted and the barrels painted. Well, I've got a good friend just down the road now, as we know, 4 miles away, who's got some fantastic equipment for doing that. So these will be going away to be cleaned up, and in the case of the barrels painted, hopefully by the time they come back I might have resolved the issue with this piston ring. But I really don't see why I should buy a new full set of rings, which will probably be for both pistons, because this box held 2 of each, when this thing just pretty much broke of its own accord. But we'll see where we get and where we go with that. And I think between my probable wait for these to be taken care of and Christmas just around the door, it might even be after Christmas before we get much in the way of an update on this. But that's where we're at the moment with the A65 engine, and it's just a matter for me to fit the valve guides probably grind in the valves, possibly recut a seat or two, three, maybe all of them. And once the head's done, and it'll all be nice and clean and shiny by then, it'll just be a matter of fitting and bolting down the top end, and this engine will be done. Happy Christmas.